Alrighty, welcome. So you're interested in working in developer relations, but you've either got no experience or very little experience. So how on earth do you find that elusive job? Well, good news, because in this video, I'm going to show you a very simple 6-step process for how to do exactly that. Okay, so let's first of all get these on the board. Now, the benefits of going through these 6 steps is that you're going to learn what kind of skills are required to be good at DevRel, where your current set of skills lines up with those industry required skills, and how you can fill the gaps in them. I'm going to show you how to get experience without getting a job, and then how to create a killer resume so you can get your ideal job. Okay? Now, when anybody is trying to get into any new industry, one of the big mistakes that they make is they kind of go into it blind, okay? That they don't look at the reality of the world that they're in at that moment in time and what the industry wants so they can align their skills and interests with what the industry needs. So we don't want to make that mistake, okay? So the first step of this process is to explore, okay? Now let me explain why this is important, because this is a subtle but really, really critical point. Our brains are pattern matching machines, okay? We take information in and our brains will try to find patterns in the information that we feed it, okay? Those patterns are the formation of our skills, of our expertise, of our processes, of our methodologies, of our approaches, okay? So the more information we feed our brains, generally the better set up for success we're going to be, all right? So what I want you to do is I want you to identify 3 communities that you're interested in your particular area of technology, whether it's AI, ML, whether it's containers, infrastructure, whatever it might be. It doesn't really matter, whatever you're interested in. Identify 3 communities that you want to analyze. This is going to be our homework, okay? And ideally, these communities are going to be communities that have got developer relations leads or staff that are working on them, okay? Because we want to observe what they're doing, and then we can use that as a formation for the rest of our approach here, which is going to be really important, okay? Now you're probably thinking, all right, Bacon, what am I observing in those 3 communities? Well, good news. This is where my speak model comes in, okay? This is something I came up with. There's the 5 areas where most developer relations staff tend to focus. This is usually where the responsibilities are, okay? So each of these 5 areas you should be evaluating in your 3 target communities, all right? So the first one here is social media. When you look at those DevRel people in your target 3 communities, what are they doing? Which networks do they post to? What kind of content do they put out there? What is the role of images and videos? What kind of response do they get? Do they get liked, reshared, retweeted? What is the tonality? Is it formal? Is it informal? But evaluate how they're doing social media, okay? The second one, which is P, is presenting. So this is presenting a narrative and a story to an audience, whether it's speaking at an in-person event, speaking at a virtual event, whether it's doing a webinar. But how are they constructing a story and a narrative, packaging it up with slides and whatever else, and presenting it? And what is the quality of that presentation? Is it dull and boring and monotone, or is it really good? Okay, so go and observe presenting as well. The first E here is events. So this is putting together events, whether it's in-person meetups or full conferences or virtual events, or it could be hackathons, or it could be just general community Zoom hangout sessions, whatever it might be. But go and evaluate the quality of the events and the kind of events they're putting on, and look at the schedule, the content, the promotion, all of those different pieces, okay? The next E is engagement. So this is how those DevRel folks are engaging and interacting with their audiences, okay? Whether this is on forums, Slack, Mattermost, Discord, Gitter, GitHub, GitLab, mailing lists, IRC, whatever it might be, wherever they're engaging, how are they engaging? What are they talking about? What is the topic of those discussions? How are those discussions resolved? Do they feature? Do they get to a resolution? Again, what is the tonality? Are they playful? Are they engaging? Are they fun? Are they dynamic? Or are they boring and miserable and monotone? Go and evaluate the quality of their engagement. And then finally, content. What kind of content are they putting out? Is it blogging? Is it podcasting? Is it YouTube? Is it live streaming? Is it Twitch? Whatever it might be. But go and evaluate not just the mediums that they're using for content, but also what content they're putting out there, how long it is, the tonality of that content, and again, how well it is received with the audience. Now, quick sidebar: if you're interested in doing content well and creating amazing content, And if you'd like to up your content game, then I'd like to recommend you go and click on the link down there in the video description, because I've put together a complete training course, online training course for how to create amazing content. It walks through choosing your mediums, coming up with brainstorming, how to publish content effectively, how to measure it effectively. Go and check out the link in the video description down there, okay? So for each of your 3 communities, what I want you to do is to go and analyze these 5 areas in the Speak model, okay? This is absolutely essential so we can really understand the world that we live in, okay? Now, the next step of this process is that you're going to evaluate you. So this is, where do you line up in this world, okay? If you want to do anything well, it's important to baseline where you are at the beginning of the journey so you can see what kind of progress you're making, okay? So what we want to do in how we evaluate ourselves is to think about, for each of these 5 skills in the Speak model, how would we rate ourselves based upon what we've seen people in DevRel are doing, okay? So what we're going to do is, let's start out with social, okay? Based upon what you've seen, the quality of social media that you've seen, what kind of expertise have you got, okay? If you've never done it before, literally never done it before, mark yourself as a 1. If you're an expert, an old pro, you've been doing it forever, then mark yourself as a 10. Okay? And somewhere on that sliding scale, you're going to be, all right? So if you've never done social media before, you've maybe done it a little bit, you're probably going to be between 1 and 5, okay, in terms of your level of expertise. Let's assume for the moment that you're an expert in social media, you've been doing it for years, you get great responses, great results, you know what kind of social media grabs people, so you give yourself an 8, a 9, or a 10. But let's say, for the sake of argument, you've never presented to an audience before. You've never done a talk at a conference. You've never submitted a paper for consideration. You've never put slides together. You might put yourself down there as a 1. So go and evaluate each of these 5 areas based upon what you've seen out there. And this is going to baseline you in terms of what you can offer right now, but also where the gaps are in your experience, right? And this is really important, because if you identify, for example, okay, well, I've done social media and I'm decent at engagement, but my weak spots are presenting and events, then now you know those are the 2 areas where you're going to want to learn, read books, watch YouTube videos, hopefully watch some of my videos, get some mentoring so you can build out those skills, because that's what the market's going to need. All right? All right, so now what we're going to do is move on to step 3, and this is where we join a community. Okay, this is where we're going to build out our experience. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier on, if you don't have any experience, it's very difficult to get a job, okay? But you need a job to get experience, okay? This is the chicken and egg situation that we find ourselves in, okay? So how do you get that experience? Well, the solution to this is that you get volunteer experience, okay? So what I want you to do here is to identify one project. Now, this is usually, in many cases, an open source project, and which I'd recommend as a great place to start for building experience. But I want you to identify a community that you're interested in, that you can join, where you feel like you can add value. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, well, I know of loads of communities out there, but which ones can I add value to? Well, this, my friend, is where we go back to the Speak model, okay? Look at the scores in each of those 5 areas and pick the highest scores, right? And then start there. So let's say you gave yourself, for social media, an 8 or a 9 or a 10 because you've been doing it for years. Well, go into that project and just start doing social media. Start promoting new releases and start, maybe doing some Twitter chats, maybe start doing some interviews with developers or promoting documentation or events that are going on. But just start applying your area of expertise right now to that particular community. In many cases, you don't really need to ask for permission. You can just start contributing. If you do need to ask for permission, obviously do that. So do so first, but just start participating. Now, once you've got some experience under your belt, the community that you're participating in, love the work that you're doing because you're just showing up as a volunteer and helping out. People love that kind of thing. What's going to happen is your network's going to grow. You're going to get to know great people. You're going to build great experience within the area that you're focusing on, okay? Everything's going to be awesome. But now what you want to do is, once you've kind of found your feet, is start then focusing on the areas where you've got less experience. So let's say we identify presenting as something we've never done before. Well, maybe you can reach out to some folks in the community who've been doing presenting, who've presented at conferences before, and ask them to give you a little bit of mentoring, right? Because you've built that relationship. Or you could go and submit a paper at a conference, an online event or an in-person conference, and just, try and build something and get some feedback from some members of the community and just start, okay? But this is how we build out our experience. Do it in a volunteer setting. Start with where your strengths are, and then move where your strengths aren't. And that's how you can build capabilities and skills in a very, very safe and very productive manner, okay? Now, at this point in the process, if you're finding this useful, I'd like to recommend you hit that like button because it helps my videos to get more recognition. And of course, click that subscribe button and that little notification bell so you'll get notified when I put new videos out, okay? So at this point in the journey, we've developed some experience and we've got real clarity on what skills we need to develop and to refine, okay? Step number 4 here is where you share what you're doing. This is really important, okay? You see, one of the things that I've worked with hundreds of companies who've hired developer relations staff, and I've hired a bunch of developer relations staff myself. And one of the biggest fears that companies have is that they hire somebody who thinks they know it all, who thinks they've got everything figured out, and then they've got an ego and they never change and they struggle to work with other people, okay? Nobody wants to work with people like that, all right? So what you want to do is you want to tell the story of your developer relations journey as it grows, and also share the vulnerability of that journey. So this is what I want to ask you to do, okay? I'm going to draw a big arrow down here. It's to set up a blog. You can do it on Medium, you can do it on WordPress.com, there's lots of free blogging services out there, and just start writing every single day, or at least 3 times a week, about what you're learning. You know, talk about which communities you've identified and what you're seeing with these 5 areas in the SPEAK model. Talk about which community you're joining and talk about how you're applying your skills and helping out and the things that you're learning, okay? Tell your story as you're working through your story. Write that on a blog and then promote it on social media, okay? Make sure you've got some social media accounts set up. I'd recommend Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn as a bare minimum. You might want to throw in Facebook there, but just go and tell the story about what you're learning. Now, this is the really important nuance of this, is that a lot of people are nervous about telling their story when they don't feel like they're as good as they can be, right? Like, if you've got lots to learn, if you feel like you don't have some of these skills, is it going to ruin your future opportunities by saying, I'm not very good at presenting and I'm trying to get better at that and this is what I'm doing and telling the story? Well, that's a good question. It's a good concern to have. But vulnerability is strength, you know? Showing that you aren't a perfect human being, that you're an imperfect human being, and telling that story and confronting what's missing head on is what people love to see as a general rule, okay? The tricky thing in doing this is that you're going to probably face all kinds of anxiety. Your brain is going to probably say, oh God, what happens if somebody influential reads your blog post about you being vulnerable? Is that going to stand in the way? Or you're probably going to have some imposter syndrome that's going to be standing in the way of doing this. Well, this is what you need to do. Our brains tend to interfere with our future success in these kinds of things, okay? So when that happens, this is what I want you to do, is to say, brain, shut the f*** up, okay? Show your brain who is boss. Being honest, being vulnerable, sharing your journey in a very constructive and open capacity, I think is an incredibly positive trait in a human being, okay? It's something that CEOs and executives that I work with every day always celebrate, okay? It's a great thing, but your brain's going to try and get in the way. So remember, what are you going to say? Repeat after me. Brain, shut the f*** up. Okay? All right. So share your story every single day. All right. And then that's going to lead us now to step 5, which is your resume. Okay? This is where we put together a resume so we can talk about everything we've learned and everything we've done, all this amazing experience that we've developed, okay? Now, I know some of you are English and you hear my dulcet British tones and you're saying, but Jono, it's not a resume, it's a CV. Use the Queen's English correctly. Well, here's the thing. I've been living in America now for 13 years. It's time to move on, okay? So I say resume. I tell you what I'm not saying though. I'm not saying tomato and I'm not saying garage, okay? It's tomato and garage, okay? So I do have some semblance of dignity about my use of the English language, but your resume is what's next, okay? So this is what I'd like to ask you to do next, okay? So down there in the, I'm trying to draw and waggle my finger, down there in the video description is a link to a web page where you can go and download a resume template, okay? So this is a template you can download and it will walk you through how to fill out your resume, okay? Now your resume is your first impression that a company is going to have of you. So you want to make sure that it's absolutely rock solid, okay? one of the most critical pieces is the opening paragraph that describes you and your expertise and all that kind of good stuff, okay? So you need to make sure that that opening paragraph is absolutely watertight, okay? Write it, summarize the amazing work that you do. My phone is ringing. Hang on, let me get rid of somebody. You see, this is the professionalism that you should expect from my videos, is that I didn't mute my phone. Anyway, let's go back to resume. So that opening paragraph is absolutely essential in getting across the value that you've got in your experience as quickly and as easily as possible. So when somebody's hiring any kind of position in a company, they're going to get a lot of resumes, okay? And some people believe the way in which they're going to get more recognized and get to the top of the pile is by adding more into the resumes. It's completely the wrong strategy, okay? Most people who are hiring for a role, they just want to get to the juice quickly and easily. So your resume should be short, sharp, focused. Make sure that opening paragraph is very clear. The other thing is making sure that you include all of your amazing volunteer experience inside of your resume. You know, this project that you're contributing to, what you're doing inside of that project. If there's other opportunities that come from that project that you've been participating in, make sure that you list those inside of your resume as well, okay? Now, I'm not going to walk through step by step how to build a resume. I'll probably do a different video on that, but you can go and check that template down there. It'll give you a good way to get started, okay? And then the final step of the process is to apply, okay? This is to now go out there and actually go and try and get a job, okay? So there's two things I want you to do here. The first one is to identify your dream companies. What are the 10 or 20 dream companies that you'd love to work for? Is it Tesla? Is it Google? Is it Microsoft? Is it HashiCorp? Is it Canonical? Is it, I don't know, Facebook? Whoever it might be. Go and write down the companies that you're really excited by that you'd love to work at. And go and take a look at any open roles and recs that might be available. But if they don't have open roles for developer relations, don't despair. Just go and identify your dream companies. But then the other thing that I want you to do is to tap your network. So the reason why I have constructed it this way, of identifying the areas of skills, of strength and weakness, joining a project, doing great work there, is that your network is going to grow when you participate as a volunteer. You're going to get to know people. Then when later on, once you've built your resume and you start identifying the companies you love to work at, now you can start having conversations with people who you know and saying, hey, do you know anyone who works at this company? I'm really excited about getting a job there, blah, 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 blah. That's the best way into a company, okay? Just go in and submitting your resume through the application on the website. Sure, that is a method of doing it, and some companies will tell you to do that anyway. But if you can find a personal connection into a company, it's much more effective. It's much more efficient way of actually getting the right kind of results. Now, here's the thing. Getting your ideal job, getting your dream job is really complicated work, okay? But I have good news for you, is that I have built a complete training course for how to do this. It's called How to Get Your Dream Community Job, and it's very specifically focused on people who work as community professionals, which includes developer relations, developer evangelists, it includes directors of community management, all those kinds of roles, okay? So if you go down there and in the video description, you'll be able to find a link to the course page. It walks you through every single step of the process, from how you identify what kind of role you want, to how you build your skills, to how you develop your experience. In more detail, I'll walk through hands-on how to build a resume. I'll give you the template and other material. I'll show you exactly how to apply for roles. I'll show you how to interview for a role effectively. Some people make some bumbling mistakes when they're interviewing. I dig into that in a great level of detail, but I think you'll find it really helpful. But irrespective of whether you go and grab that course or not, this is the process that I'd recommend. This is what I've seen people do time and time again that gets the right kind of results, okay? Alrighty, so make sure you hit that like button, because the like button helps to get my videos seen by more people. Hit the subscribe button to get more of these videos, and of course tap that cheeky little notification bell, because that will make sure that you're notified when new videos come out. And with that, my friend, best of luck. You're going to do an amazing job. Remember, if your brain interferes, what do you say? Brain, shut the f*** up, okay? Get out there, be successful. Peace out.